Hello, good afternoon. Well, good morning. We're still in the morning. Santiago Marquez here. It's a pleasure to be here with you again, the CEO of Latin American Association. We haven't had a conversation with the CEO in a while. Today, we have a great guest, somebody who's become a friend of mine, and we'll get to him in 1 second. But I want to tee it up by giving you guys an update on what the LAA has been doing over the last month. We have actually been vaccinating people here in our building. I believe the count as of today was about 550 people that have been vaccinated here just on our grounds. Obviously, we had a project up in Northwest Georgia and Dalton where we vaccinated over 5,000 people. Many of those were vaccinated right where they work at their factories. But just really proud of the fact that we're vaccinating here. We're going to be vaccinating here until mid-June. So if you haven't gotten the vaccine yet, or if you have friends and family that haven't gotten the vaccine and they're looking for a place that they know, that they trust, they're not going to be asked a lot of questions. Take a look at our calendar, and please, you don't need an appointment. So just walk right up and come and get the vaccine. We continue to provide our daily services, right? So we continue to help people with rental assistance, with food insecurity, with SNAP benefits, Medicare, WIC, immigration services. And yes, we are helping with TPS for Venezuelans. So if you find yourself in that situation, give us a call. We're happy to help. And we have launched an incubator for women, for Latina business owners here in our building. And if you're interested in starting a business or looking at growing your business, give us a call as well. One of the areas that we do focus on and have been for many years is our youth services. And we have a great relationship with several schools, but one of the school districts is the Gwinnett County School District, which is the biggest school district in the state. I myself happen to live in the county and have been for 20 years. Really proud of our school district. It's an award-winning school district. So today's guest is Dr. Hunter. He is the Associate Superintendent for Curriculum and Instructional Support. Dr. Hunter, welcome. Introduce yourself and tell us what you do, please.
Yes, big, long title. So I usually try to explain what I do. First of all, thank you for allowing me to be here. It is really an honor to be able to join you this morning. And so when I tell people about what I do, I try to describe it from the context of the student. So if your student is taking math, which I hope they are, and language arts and science and social studies, I support all of the different curriculum areas that focus on the teaching of those courses. Your students who are in the gifted program, or students who are served through ESOL, students who are in career and technical education, students who are served through special education. I also support those areas as well. Students who take tests, that will be all students. I work in testing. Students who have textbooks in hand, students who participate in digital learning. All of those different areas are areas that I have the great privilege of leading in Gwinnett County Public Schools.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like you are really involved in just about everything, and thank you for your service. How long have you been in education, Doctor?
Yeah, this is my 26th year in education. I started out over in Fulton County as a social studies teacher, moved to Gwinnett. I've worked at Norcross High School as a teacher, Meadow Creek High School as an assistant principal. I've been a principal at Stripling Elementary over in the Norcross area. Had the great privilege of being the principal of South Gwinnett High School. Then I served as a principal supervisor, and now I'm in this role. I took a little hiatus and I worked in Atlanta Public Schools and Chicago Public Schools for just a little while, and then came back home. And I've been in Gwinnett, worked in Gwinnett. This is 21 years in Gwinnett, as a matter of fact.
Well, we're fortunate as a Gwinnetian. I would say we're fortunate to have you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about the Gwinnett County School District.
Yeah.
I can share that it's an award-winning school district. And, the other thing I can share is that during the pandemic, I think I was really proud of the fact that Gwinnett County Schools was consistent with the messaging, consistent about bringing kids back. But tell us about Gwinnett County School District.
Yes, well, you mentioned that we are the largest school system in the state of Georgia. We've got about 179,000 students. We usually hover around 181,000. And I hope that we can talk a little bit about that. That number dipped just slightly because of our kindergarten students and parents who decided to keep their kindergarten students at home. Hopefully, during the course of this conversation, I can talk a little bit about the importance of our parents bringing their little ones back to school next year. So we're at about 179,000. We are the most diverse district in the state of Georgia. As a matter of fact, we reflect the way the nation will look in 2040. So 32%, actually close to 33% of our students are Latinx. Then we've got close to 32% or 33% of our students are Black African American, followed by our white students at 19.3%. Then our Asian students are at about 11%. So as you can see, we are a plurality in the sense that we've got children across the spectrum. And so very blessed to be so diverse. I'd also like to mention that, one of the things that is interesting in how that diversity sort of played out, you mentioned the start of the year or in March, when we shut down or when we had to go and have parents, students come home because of COVID in March 2020, the diversity piece, the conversations that we needed to have around diversity really came to the forefront because there were a lot of questions that we had to have around access to digital learning, digital tools necessary to be able to support all of our families. And so very, very proud of the work that we did to make sure that our students were ready to go digital in the spring of last year. And then, as you mentioned, when we started in the fall, we gave parents the choice to go either digital or in person. We had about 45% of our students who chose to go digital. But the point I want to make here is that it was interesting to see that the majority of those, actually about 55% of our parents who decided to go digital. It was interesting that the majority of those parents were our Latinx and Black African American families. And then as the year progressed, we saw many of those families switch over to in-person.
Well, thank you for giving us that background. And tell us from your perspective with COVID and living through that, and what kind of impact has that had on the students, in particular, Latinx, right? Latinx.
Yeah.
The Black community.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that data to you relative to the number of students, Latinx students who decided to do digital, because while we're very proud of the support we were able to provide in the digital setting, what we learned was that digital learning is not for every student. There's a lot that goes into that work. For example, parents have got to be there with their child, especially the little ones, helping to do that. Very difficult to do that when you have to juggle that plus work. That would be work for the parents, I should say. Engagement was a major challenge for our students, and in particular, our Latinx students. So what I mean by that is, what we realized was how important it was for our students to see their teachers, for teachers to see their students, because there are these cues, the body language that our students sort of give off and resonate that let a teacher know that all is well or something's not right. And what we noticed was that in the digital format, it was very difficult for teachers to really get a sense of how is this student doing? Where are they? What are their challenges? What are their concerns. I think also it's important for you to know that COVID exposed a lot of economic challenges. And so we had a lot of situations where our Latinx families were struggling to make ends meet. And so you had students who said, you know what, I need to step up and help my family. And so maybe I can do this digital learning and also perhaps go to work. And that was really not, while understandably, while I understand why those tough decisions need to be made, it really did have an adverse effect upon many of our students. You know, they stepped up, our children did, and stepped in for their families, for themselves. They juggled a lot during this COVID pandemic. And so I say all of that to say that what we realized very quickly was that we needed to get those students back in person. We needed to put our eyes on them. We needed to hear their stories and make sure that we were providing the interventions necessary for them to be successful.
Right. Well, and thank you for doing that. And so that leads to the next point. And by the way, feel free to ask any questions for those of you that are out there. You can put it on the comments and we'll ask Dr. Hunter to answer those questions. You know, working here at the LAA and working with our youth department, and what we have heard is, and this is happening everywhere, right? It's not just in county schools, that a lot of the students in our community, for example, have, you know, dropped off, or the ones that, you know, just dropped out, like really, you know, and in many cases, we believe that they've had to, you know, they chose to go to work to help their families, right? And I think that's, you know, you can talk a little bit about that, but also that the kids that stayed, you know, engaged virtually really fell behind. You know, they're really behind, right? And so tell us what the answer is, because we don't want to just talk about the problem. We know that you have an answer. What's the solution? So what is Gwinnett County Schools' answer to what we know is a reality right now?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. So what we are focused on, well, let me tell you what we've got to not do, for lack of a better way of phrasing it. You know, in the past, we operated from a deficit model, which is to say, we made the argument that let's assume they know nothing, and let's focus on remediation, and let's hold them back or make them do all of the work all over again. And I would tell you, Santiago, if we choose that path, I don't think we're going to be able to ever get our students back on track. So the alternative is what we're focused on, which is acceleration. We do know that there are things that our students did learn. So what we want to do is we want to focus our students on the standards, on the curriculum, on the information they're going to learn next year. And and that's really called previewing. So if you got a fourth grade student who's sitting in fourth grade class right now, what we want to do this summer and into next school year is focus on previewing the fifth grade curriculum, the fifth grade standards, the things that student is going to learn in the fifth grade during the summer. So let's bring them in over 3 weeks, whether in person or digitally, show them the fifth grade standards, let them get comfortable with those fifth grade standards. And then 2 things are going to happen. One, we're going to find out what they do know, and then keep supporting them with what they do know. And then where there are gaps, we can then strategically fill in those gaps. But if we make the decision to keep them in the fourth grade, the chances of them ever being able to get back on track to graduate on time become slim to none. And that's something that I really, really, really want to emphasize to your audience, that this is a conversation that we're not just having in Gwinnett. This is a national conversation. about how do we get students back on track, because you're right. We did have students, especially those that were online, that didn't turn on their camera. Maybe they were distracted by things going on in their homes and they really weren't able to focus. They got some information, but they didn't get all of the information. And we know that from their grades. The grades for us were the number one indicator that things weren't going right. And second to grades, and really right up there, was attendance. We watched students come in, come out. Some days they showed up. Some weeks they showed up for 3 days. Sometimes we didn't see them for 2 days. So when you couple the attendance challenges with the grade challenges, we know that there are gaps. Let's not only use remediation, holding students back, as the only form of intervention. We really believe that if we show students, expose them to what we expect for them to be able to know and do, we stand a better chance of getting them back on track.
Really innovative, and really appreciate that effort. Question, is this is kindergarten through 8th grade?
Well, yes, but we're doing it in high school as well. But let me switch to high school, because high school is a little different. For those parents that have high school students, the focus really is on making sure that they have their high school credit. So our summer school, our summer learning, and is focused on credit recovery. Clay did not, he did not finish all of his assignments. Let's figure out which assignments he did not finish, and let's open up the building, whether it be on a Saturday or during this summer, to allow him to finish the assignments he didn't complete. Again, same concept in that we really want to try to avoid making Clay go back through all of the coursework.
Sure.
Because that's where students get discouraged. They become dismayed. They figure, why would I want to go back through all of that? And then they end up dropping out. And we can't afford for that to happen.
Totally. And by the way, so the woman who cuts my hair, a good friend of mine, and I started going to her because during the pandemic, she's my wife's hairdresser, but she's the only one that would come to my house and cut my hair and my dad's hair. So now I go to her. But she was telling me, I went to get a haircut the other day, and she told me that her son, I think, goes to definitely goes to Gwinnett County School, is in high school, and he has some assignments to make up for band, and so she is definitely taking advantage of this, and so really a great service that's being done. Really appreciate that. So where do you see the future of education going? And this is a question out of left field, I know, but given the diversity that you see in Gwinnett, and I agree, I mean, that's part of the reason I've been in Gwinnett 20 years. Part of the reason I love living in Gwinnett is, it's so diverse. The richness of the different cultures, the food, the learnings makes us really strong. But where do you see do you see any changes in terms of Gwinnett County schools, going forward, in terms of, because the diversity continues, right? And the growth continues.
That's right. That's right.
What's your sense?
Great question. I believe that what the pandemic has exposed is how important it truly is for us to know our students' journey, for us to know our students' history, their culture, the beliefs that they bring to the classroom, the values they bring to the classroom. I think what we've come to realize is we can't simply teach the content. We're going to have to teach the student, and that's very different. The way it looks traditionally is, this is a math class. Santiago, I know your name. I know a little bit about you, maybe your siblings, but I'm here to teach you math. What we're going to have to shift to is, who are you? What are your family's values? What's your story? what's your journey? Because it's going to be very, very difficult for me to get you to learn these math concepts, to get you to engage in, and to get you to want to do this work if I don't take the time to get to know you. So we're focused in Gwinnett on making sure that we get our teachers trained around cultural responsive teaching, where we really ask the right questions of our students around their thoughts, their dispositions. We also are really going to focus in on the social emotional needs of our students, making sure that we can identify everything from where trauma has happened or exists and respond accordingly, to creating opportunities for students to be able to support one another when they're having these challenges. We're not going to be able to ignore the student and just focus on the content as we move forward. The other thing I would say to you is we're going to have to do, and we're working on doing a much better job of making it easier for our students to transition from high school into college and career. You know, a lot of the challenges that students face when they get their diploma is not around their ability to navigate college from an academic standpoint. It's the paperwork that parents have to fill out. So we are involved in conversations with Georgia Gwinnett College, with Gwinnett Tech, and other post-secondary institutions to figure out how do we create articulation agreements that allow students to automatically move from their high school status into that college, into that career, without burdening the parents with the paperwork, with the bureaucracy that sometimes distracts and really discourages the families from putting students on that path. The third thing that I would tell you is early learning. We know now more than ever before that the time from birth to 5 is critical for our students. We need to be reading to our students. The moment we find out that they are on their way, we've got to start reading to them and talking with them. And then when they're born, you know, we have to have conversations with them, not in kiddie language, but in real adult language, right? In all the different languages that we know. Because what the research tells us is our babies are listening to us. And the more words we can speak to them, the more language we can share with them, the more things we can expose them to, the better off they're going to be in terms of being prepared for kindergarten. Right now, a little bit better than half of our children are ready for kindergarten. And if they are not ready for kindergarten, they start out behind in the great race of life. So we're going to have to circle the bandwagon. We're going to have to get together as a community. We're going to have to talk about the importance of early learning, birth to 5 years old.
Wow. That's, I had the pleasure of serving many years ago on the Atlanta Speech School. They were doing a project on having mothers talk to their babies while they were in the womb and actually reading to their mothers. And it was a project around focusing on your native language.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think what I had read and understood was that there was a big push, obviously, for people to try to speak English, but, in terms of reading to your child, or speaking to your child, just do it in your native language, because it's that engagement that's critical. Yes. But I'm not an expert in that. You certainly are. We do have a question from our good friend here, and Jackie Killings is definitely a good friend up in Northwest Georgia, works with us, helps us quite a bit, and is very involved in the NAACP up there. So Jackie's question is, do you think we will have to change the way teaching degrees and education degrees are taught in colleges now? In other words, do we have to teach teaching differently?
Yes, I'll give you one example of that. And this is the work that we're doing starting with our summer enrichment and acceleration, and we'll go into the school year. We have to help our teacher candidates understand the power of small group instruction. If you remember back, Santiago, in our day, we had that teacher that sort of stood up in front of the class and delivered, right? And they just gave the information. What we're focused on in this summer enrichment, we're focused on making sure that the teacher is able to get a sense of the individual needs of those students in the classroom, and then maybe model what it is we're expecting to do today as a class. But that modeling should be just a few minutes. And then the rest of the class time is spent gathering small groups of students together to talk through, did you understand the modeling that I just did? Talk to me about your misconceptions. Let me see how I might be able to help you. And rotating those small groups of students where you can, in a very intimate way, find out what their individual needs are. And where necessary, go over in conference with an individual student to make sure that they're clear on the work they need to do. That is a very high level of instruction because it means that you have structured the learning. You've taught students how to work independently while you're working with each student individually or in small groups. It means students have to know the rules of the classroom in terms of when I can ask Mr. Marquez about a particular question I might have versus perhaps talking with another student to make sure that I check with them first. It means creating an atmosphere of collaboration in the classroom, but we're gonna need to be able to make that shift. And that's the modeling that we're gonna be doing for our teachers as they do this summer enrichment and acceleration for our students this summer. The other thing is the culture responsive teaching is absolutely necessary for our new teachers. As I mentioned before, they've got to know the student. They've got to take the time to have that community meeting before the learning starts, where they ask, how are you today? What's going on with you? Let's do a mental check-in with one another. Let's make sure you're doing all right. And when I'm not all right, how do you respond to me and my need for support, but also keep the classroom going on the academic work that needs to be done? Very, very high level of skill that's necessary to do that. But I believe that's some of the few things that we're going to need to help teachers do as we move forward.
Excellent. We'll have one more question and then we'll wrap it up. But just to answer Hugo's question, I think it was already answered, but yes, we do still teach English here. We actually did a lot. We switched to virtual during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't go well at first, but it started catching on and we're now up to pre-pandemic levels. We are looking at starting English classes again in the building here in the fall. So we don't have a coffee hour yet, Hugo. We will as soon as I've asked all the staff to return July 12th. We're here in the building, but we're running a skeleton crew. Now that vaccinations are widely available and we're vaccinating here, we're asking everybody to come back July 12th. So I love the coffee hour. I think we can start that in the fall. One more question from our good friend up in Dalton, Georgia, Jackie. Since the birth to 5 age range is so crucial for a child's development, do we as a community, as a country, need to put more emphasis for kids in this age range? The mandated state educational requirements don't come to play until a child is 4 or 5. Should education be mandated before then? If you feel like answering that, Dr. Hunter, I don't want to.
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. I do think there's some work that we need to do before we get to the mandating conversation. Right now in Gwinnett, the challenge we have is matching seats for early learning opportunities to parents. In other words, we've had a community group that's been looking at this problem in Gwinnett. And what we discovered was that we've got empty seats for the early learning that's already being funded by the state. But we have issues where either parents don't know about those empty seats or can't get to those seats that are empty. And I think we really need to start there with making sure that there's access to the early learning opportunities, and then let the dust settle and then figure things out, because it would be terrible for us to mandate it and then not be able to provide the service, because I think that would frustrate parents as they try to adhere to the mandate without the right support in place. Now, I do want to do a plug here for some work that we're doing with kindergarten in Gwinnett. Two things. One, want to encourage our parents to register their children for kindergarten. I do understand for safety reasons, we wanted to make sure that we gave that gap year to our kindergarten students, but we want to encourage, and we actually are offering a drawing that we're doing for parents that register their students. If you bring your child in to your local school, register them, your name will go in the hat. You've got an opportunity to win some really great prizes that have been donated to us for registering. The other thing is we're offering a 3-week Rising K Academy, where we're going to bring those kindergarten students in for 3 weeks to get them acclimated to being around other children, to being away from their parents, to being with a teacher. And this is so critical, because if we can show our little ones what it's like to be in that setting, it's going to make August a whole lot easier. You'll be able to minimize the crying and the gripping on of the leg and all of that emotional wear and tear that happens when we try to separate children for the first time. So please register your child for kindergarten. Ask your school about the Rising K Academy. We desperately want to make sure that our parents take advantage of this opportunity.
Fantastic. Now, last question. Are you actively hiring, and I'm sure you're doing this all the time, but how we stand with teachers? Is there a big need for more teachers right now, or are you actively looking for more teachers? And if so, how does a professional or somebody who doesn't have a teaching degree get started in teaching?
Yes, yes, and yes. And especially bilingual people, right? So if you have an interest in teaching, it might be that you start out as a paraprofessional. We've got a program, in other words, if you don't have a teaching certificate, but you're interested in teaching, we want to encourage you to consider becoming a paraprofessional. We actually have a program in place where we're actually getting our paraprofessionals into Georgia Gwinnett College and then working with them on getting a teacher certificate. If you have a desire to be a bus driver, we want to get you in to be a bus driver, and then maybe perhaps we can get you from being the bus driver or custodian into the teaching field. But if you have a teaching certificate, we are looking for you. Want you to go to the Gwinnett County Public Schools website. You will see where you can apply for openings. And we really are. We want to bring in as many people as we can. And I want to stress that, because a lot of people get discouraged and say, well, I don't have the degree, I don't have the certification. Go on our website, take a look at other opportunities that may be available, fill out that application. Let's connect and get you, because we want your talent here in Gwinnett County Public Schools.
Excellent. Well, Dr. Hunter, thank you for spending time with us today. We know you're busy, and certainly I know our kids are in great hands. I do want to take a minute to thank all the teachers out there. My wife is not a teacher, but she works at the school where my kids attend, and just what a heroic job any day, but especially during the pandemic. So thank you to all our teachers and educators and everybody, the bus drivers, the custodians, everybody, right? It's the cafeteria folks, right?
Yeah.
Everybody it's a big effort. And on behalf of, from a parent, thank you so much for that. Thank you, Dr. Hunter. I just want to say hello to Grayson Rams, but thank you for everything. Have a wonderful.
Santiago, I want to say one last thing.
Sure.
If you choose not to, or if the classrooms are full for the in-person learning this summer, we are offering the digital version of the accelerated model to every K-8 student in the district. And all you have to do is just log in through your student portal, and you will have access to the curriculum, and you can do it on your own, self-paced, and see the work that you're going to have to do next year so you're ready in the fall.
Excellent. Great to know. Well, Dr. Hunter, thank you. And please, parents, or those of you who are watching, get your kids enrolled, because this is a great program. Have a great summer, Dr. Hunter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.